Hi there, it's Hills Carmichael from Resilience Central. I work with people to overcome challenges so that they can get really good results. And I'm really pleased to be here today with Sera Johnston, who is a buddy of mine and is also has come into my sphere, if you like, because your story just resonates with so much stuff that I talk about and deal with clients. Um, and I should say that Sera is a published author and she's working on her second book. Her first book is Dana's Walk to the Stars, which is all about in fact, the journey that Dana, your daughter, had when she was diagnosed with cerebral palsy. And Sera had to go through the various different stages of coming to acceptance with that. And then actually taking, just deciding that she was going to take things on and sort out Dana some really, really fantastic healthcare over in the States. And that kind of charts that journey. But what's been really interesting to me is that as a coach, you have a different perspective on all of this as well, don't you? You've lived it, and now you work with a population of people who have disabilities, or they have children who have disabilities, but they're also moving into kind of losing their own identity as well.
Absolutely.
So what I was curious about was, when that first happened, and that was quite some years ago, what were some of the challenges that you faced?
I think for me, being a first-time mum, all the excitement of, carrying your child and being a mum, getting prepared, and then suddenly you're faced with you've got a child with a disability, it's actually coming to terms with that. And I remember very clearly, suddenly I was in this world I knew nothing about. So not only am I a mum of a beautiful baby girl, I'm also a mum of a child with a disability. So suddenly you're in this abled world, but you're also in this disabled world, and the two worlds generally don't marry together. So it was a challenge manoeuvring between the two.
And as a coach now yourself, with the challenges, what were some of the emotions that you went through? Because Dana was diagnosed around about the 13-month point or
13 months. And I remember very clearly how you go through the first year of her life, oblivious to what's going on, and at 13 months suddenly, wow, your world crashes down and you suddenly become what's going on, and you don't know, and the internet becomes your best friend, and denial certainly was at the forefront. You're not going to accept this, they're wrong, they don't know what they're talking about, and you go for second opinions and everything's going to be okay. And then anger, how can this happen, how can this be, why me, the guilt and the feeling of wow, what's life going to be, and you're scared, and then depression hits, and you don't know you're depressed at the time.
And you were holding your job down as well.
Oh, I was working as well. Yeah. And the work actually, Hilary, became my saviour. The work actually, I became this person who hid behind the work. So suddenly I was me, and I just put on this persona. It's like putting on a uniform. You put on this persona and you get the job done. And suddenly my daughter became a job. So I suddenly got into this, right, what needs to be done? And then you got into this practical, right, I'm not a mum, I've got a job to do. And then you suddenly become, right, I've got another role. So I'm at work, I'm a professional person in work, but I've also got a job, not as a mum, but actually getting things in place for her that she needs.
So, to my mind, that has you almost making it almost like another task.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is a coping strategy as well.
Yeah.
So that's interesting, because we hadn't sort of specifically spoken about this point, and it's interesting because what happens to your identity if you're dealing with something just as a couple of tasks?
That's completely lost, absolutely gone. you have an identity at work because you've got a job to do, and you have an identity at home, not as a mum. You become a carer.
Mm-hmm.
You become just engulfed in appointments. You become engulfed in the needs, the health needs, the school needs, appointments in terms of meetings, what needs to be done, orthotics, the different aids that she needs, and it is a job. It is a job. You become this other person. So when I looked in the mirror, it wasn't me. I didn't know who I was, and unbeknown to me, I was still depressed. And interestingly, you can function and you can still be depressed, and it was just bizarre. I was angry all the time, and I was crying when I was alone. You know, things got on top of me, and but I just didn't realise the signs at the time.
So you had some massive challenges going on. We met when Dana would have been 9 or 10.
Around that time,
around that time. And one of the things that Sarah did was we did a particular course, and I don't know whether that set the scene for it, but that was the point at which you decided you weren't going to take no for an answer. And I remember Sarah just going on social media or just on email, and she decided to go on this campaign to raise £60,000. And that was something like in the January of the year.
Yeah.
And she was just like this powerhouse. She your mindset must have been just incredible, because you just decided, I'm doing this. And was it by July you'd raised £75,000 just
June.
by June? And so Dana was able to have her operation in August.
That's
which
right.
Which is incredible. So how did you? I mean, all right. First and foremost, what advice would you have for someone who has got a really, really severe challenge?
I think just breathe, first of all, because
we like the breathing.
Yeah, that really helps. Just stop and breathe, and just take time for you. Just check in with you and just notice how you're feeling, what's going on with you, what are you thinking, what's actually, bubbling up inside. If you are having symptoms of depression, of feeling low, talk to somebody. Don't hold it in. And also just take time for you. Just give yourself permission to look after you, because that's crucial.
So some time, or actually, do you know, that if we go on to something else that you explained about, you did a survey, didn't you?
That's right.
Via Facebook.
Yeah.
And you went out to quite a large population of parents who had children with disabilities. And you kind of did a poll with them.
Yeah.
What were some of the findings that you found from that?
It was really, really interesting, because I had my thoughts. Obviously, I had to go out and see what other people were thinking, and the top one was people feeling trapped, and the second was not having enough time, and the third was guilt. And in my mind, I thought guilt would be the top one.
Yeah.
So feeling trapped was interesting. What I didn't do was actually delve a little bit deeper, because feeling trapped can be feeling trapped in your own home and not being able to go out, but it's also feeling trapped in your head. So what stories are you telling yourself? What thoughts are you actually telling yourself? Because that can be trapped. You can feel trapped in your own head as well.
So by saying that, there's a lot of people have, with anxiety and depression, have a certain kind of thought pattern that's going through their head constantly. Did you notice that with yourself?
I can now. I can reflect now.
Yeah.
And yes, and you know, every so often when you feel low, it doesn't go away. So it's actually knowing how to manage that and how to talk yourself out and finding the strategies that work for you, because everybody's different, and you must find that as well with the clients that you work with.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Just different words, different contexts, different settings. Yeah, there's so many different aspects of it, and everybody's completely different. So I think part of the feature of the work that we do is we work with people as individuals. So you need to find out what makes somebody tick.
Absolutely.
Because if you can't speak their language, they're not going to be interested.
Absolutely.
And you won't get through to them.
Absolutely. Everybody's so different, and what is somebody's coping mechanism is other somebody else is not, and their levels could be quite low and others could be quite high as well. So everybody is unique in their own special way.
So just going back to the challenges, if that's okay. So you said that it's important to have time and space for yourself. And we've kind of gone over the thing about feeling trapped, and sometimes that's not just physically trapped by the routines, but it's also trapped and not feeling there's anything else that you can do, or wondering what's happened to your life. But one of the other things that kind of struck a chord with me as well, because it's so true with the people I work with too, and that is, you told me that exercise was really key as well.
Exercise honestly saved my life. Not only when I was going through depression, but also when I was diagnosed with vestibular as well. Exercise, meditation, those are the two things really that has actually powered me through. And yes, of course, every time it's like, I can't be bothered to do this, I can't be bothered to go to the gym. It is just gold, really. To me now, if I don't exercise or meditate, it's like I haven't got food in me. It's my saviour, and we're not talking hard exercise. It could be going for a run.
That'd be hard exercise for me.
It could be go for a jog, a nice brisk walk. Just something that actually you can even do exercise at home. If I can't get to the gym, then I will do something at home. Something that actually gets your body moving and gets your mind active.
Because the science behind that is that it actually kicks all of the janitorial services in your brain into action. So of a night time, then the brain sort of regenerates. It has its what they call it, synaptic pruning. So it's like topiary. The little man comes out and trims all the synapses up here, and that means that your memories can be resolved. So we were also talking about the fact that isn't it something like, you know, from your stress probably accounts for between 80 and 90% of everything that people see at the doctors. So when you're dealing with some kind of stressor, then that's obviously going to get in the way of sleep patterns. And if you haven't got that exercise, if you're not sleeping, if you're not exercising, then your memories can't actually be consolidated. So on a day-to-day basis, you can't remember anything that's going on.
Absolutely. And you're thinking, you know, you're not thinking rationally, you're not thinking clearly, you're not making informed decisions. So it does actually affect quite a lot.
Yes, it's kind of really important.
Really important.
So that kept you sane. And really, just before we kind of close off this section, because we've been talking for a couple of hours beforehand and catching up. It's been really good fun. But what was the end of? Well, it's not the end of Dana's story by any stretch of the imagination. But after she went into hospital in the States, because that was she had something called a dorsal selective dorsal rhizotomy.
Correct. Well done.
I like my big words.
Well done.
And what difference did that make to her life?
That actually allowed her muscles to be rehabilitated. So she was given a prognosis, and she started to be in a wheelchair when she started high school. So once she had the operation, she was able to walk with sticks. She took a couple of independent steps, not much, but she actually walks with an aid now on all. In all environments, doesn't use her wheelchair, which is brilliant. And the important thing is she's independent. She's now in university. She's 19 years old and she is loving life in university. So she's living away from home. She has carers come in to help her with the day-to-day tasks. Actually, this is something that I never ever thought that she would do.
Be able to do.
I always had that ambition for her, all through her challenges herself and all through the fights that we've had. I've always installed in her a sense of independence and a sense of empowerment.
Mm-hmm.
So she's studying law in Canterbury, so she's in her second year now.
Yay!
Yes.
So we've talked about the challenges and if you like, the happy end of the story. What were some of the personal qualities that saw you through all of this?
I think the goal, beyond the goal, if I can be specific. So my goal for Dana was to have an independent life as much as possible. I didn't know how that would work out. Believe me, I had no plan how that would work. I just had this vision of her leading an independent life. So we got to the how later on. I suppose having that determination and that belief, I think the strong sense of self-belief and the confidence that it will be done.
Yes, very much so. So self-belief, confidence and a bit of vision. And I think the thing with vision as well is you don't need to worry about that you haven't got the steps. It's just having the vision. And it's kind of like, there's a wonderful expression which is, leap and the net will appear. So sometimes you just have to go with your gut and just hang on in there.
I quite like fake it until you make it, actually. It's quite a good one.
That's brilliant. Yeah. And Amy Cuddy, she does a lot of that stuff, doesn't she? That's her thing. Okay. Yeah. So I think we probably better wrap this one up, although we could chat forever. If people want to get hold of you because they want some advice or just actually modelling, if you've got a challenge or a health challenge, for myself, I remember looking at somebody else's story and thinking, well, do you know what? That diagnosis is just, whilst it might appeal to, or it might apply to me, I'm not going to stick with it. My life isn't finished by any stretch of the imagination, and I'm going to bloody well go and enjoy life and do things as well as I can do, and also take the power into my own hands and say, what about nutrition? What about exercise? What about a whole host of things? And one diagnosis doesn't, it doesn't define your life.
No, and that's why I've become a health coach now, because very much it's not just about how you think, but it's also about how you fuel your body as well. So the two go hand in hand. But sure, if anybody wants to get in touch, you can contact me at Sera Johnston Coaching. Sarah spelt S-E-R-A, slightly different. But
very different.
Get in touch with me via Facebook or send me a message and let's have a chat.
Cool.
Thank you.
Sarah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Hilary.
You're an inspiration.
You're very kind.